Hello, today's date is April 9th, 2018. My name is Jenny Roper, and I will be interviewing U.S. Army veteran Alex Tilkens as part of Salem State University Veteran Oral History Project. So Alex, I'm going to start off by asking you about your early life and your family and community and what that was like.
Okay.
So I saw on the bio form that you filled out that you were born in California. So
Yes.
Where did you live and attend school?
I was born in Oxnard, California, but my family was living in Ventura, which is adjacent to the hospital there. I moved a lot as a child. So born in Oxnard, went to Ventura, moved down to Newport Beach, and then lived in Costa Mesa, which is in Orange County, where I went to elementary school. So I think it was like Irvine. There was a school around there I went to. For some reason I have a bad memory of that part of my life. But in third grade we ended up moving to Malibu. So I went from to Malibu High School from 3rd to 10th grade.
Oh, so what was the reason for all of your moves?
It was my dad and mom divorced when I was 2. So that caused some moves. So we moved back in with my grandparents in Orange County. And then when my mom met her partner, Elizabeth, we ended up moving to Malibu eventually because she had a better job, and they kind of brought us up into the nicer part of town.
Okay, so where does your immediate family live now, like your mother's and also yours?
So my mothers both live in Massachusetts. So one of my mom's in Salem, like right down the street, and then my other mother lives in Marblehead, right nearby, and that's actually where I enlisted out of. And then my dad lives back in California, still in Ventura, where I was growing up.
Okay, so what was the reason for the move to Massachusetts?
Oh, that was someone got a new job. Betsy or Elizabeth got a new job, so ended up moving to Massachusetts. It was either Georgia or Massachusetts. And at the time, I was from California, and the South was this scary place. And then, lo and behold, I ended up living there for like 6 years.
Yeah.
So we moved here, moved to Marblehead, went to Marblehead High, but then I ended up moving back to California to finish high school at Wayne High School, Ventura. Just there was a lot of movement because of family issues and divorces, and my mom split up with her partner, so we ended up moving back to California, or I did.
That sounds tough. It
Yeah.
probably put a lot of stress on you. So what was your home life like having such a big family? I saw from your bio form.
So those are all I have 9 siblings. Those are all from marriages. So mom ended up marrying a guy again who had 4 kids, and my other mother had 2 kids with my mom via in vitro, and then my dad married a woman who had 3 kids. So there's just family everywhere, and it's not really, it doesn't make sense. I'm the only blood child of my parents. The other ones are all step siblings, so like none of them are half.
Are you close with any of them?
I'm close with most of them. It's harder to be close to ones in California because it's a 3,000-mile plane ride, but I'm still friendly with everyone.
So you have all this family and your parents as well. What is their impact on your decision in joining the military?
Nobody wanted me to join the Army. Like, zero. No one in my family was in the military or has been. I think I have a grandfather who served, but I've never met him. So I was supposed to go to like Harvard or Yale or Stanford to be a doctor or a lawyer, because that's what I was kind of raised into, was that you have to go on community service trips to Costa Rica to build schools to get into college, and you have to do nonprofit work to get into college. And throwing all that away and just joining the military one day, and none of the family was happy with it, but they understood after the fact like why I did it and
after
what's
you made
going
your
on. Yeah.
decision to join on your own. That's good. So what made you choose the Army, and what was your thought process going into that?
So when I went to the recruiters, it was a pretty bad place I was at, so I was just looking to get away and start something new. So I went to the Air Force, and they had this Air Force stigma, so I didn't want to do that because I was trying to get into something that's adventurous. The Marines have their cliches, like crane eaters and all that. So I was like, I don't know about the Marines or the Air Force. The Navy swims, and I don't like swimming that much. So the Army was the last one there. And they have like the Green Berets, they have like, it's the Army. Everyone hears about the Army first usually. So I ended up joining the Army, and the recruiter first in California is where I was trying to join, would get drunk and hammered and call me at like 2 in the morning. And I was like, okay, this is really bad, and like, you're unprofessional. So he almost pushed me away from joining. But I ended up moving back here to spend some time with my mom before I left, and the recruiters here were awesome out of Peabody, so I ended up leaving with a good recruiter.
Are you happy with your decision to join the Army, or would you have done anything differently?
I would have stayed in school, honestly, and gone to college right after high school, because the Army was great. I have all the great benefits. I own a house because of the Army, but I have a lung injury from the Army. So it's chemical exposures, my lungs don't work as well as they should. That's regrettable, but it's happened now, so I can't really dwell on that. But I would have gone to school and stayed in. I tell all my siblings, just finish college and then join as an officer if you're going to join.
Yeah, so I did have a question about that. So you said you experienced lung damage from chemical exposure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
So they can't pinpoint an exact event, but one day I was on a run and I collapsed and I couldn't breathe. So I go to the hospital and they ended up doing a bunch of tests on me, and my lung capacity was at 55 to 60% of what it's supposed to be, out of nowhere. I've never had asthma, I've never had COPD.
So you had no prior knowledge of the lung damage until you came back?
Yeah. So I used to run like 2 miles in 11 minutes and 18 seconds. I was like quick, I could run. One day on the run though, I mean I was getting a little out of shape too, but not to the point where I was gonna like die. So I collapsed, go to the hospital, and they were saying your lungs just aren't absorbing oxygen like they should. And I guess it was just repeated exposure to certain things. And it came down to it, they were gonna do lung biopsy and test it, but that would have created more complications. So now I'm just on a lot of medication to keep me breathing. Yeah,
So it still affects your breathing?
I'm on probably 10 or so drugs at a time for breathing, like every asthma medication, COPD drug you could be on, I'm on.
How would you say that affects your life?
Getting fatter.
Every day?
I don't run anymore. Hiking and stuff is harder. I get winded easy. Get made fun of by all the other veterans.
Oh, that sounds tough. So has the Army intervened in covering any of your medical expenses, or are you?
I was actually retired out of the Army due to my injury, so they forced me out because I couldn't do my job anymore. So it was like, couldn't wear gas masks or a bomb suit because of the lung issues and the threat it posed. They wouldn't want me to like fail. They wouldn't want me to fail, but they also wouldn't want me to get other people killed because I couldn't do my job. So I was put out. It took like a year and a half though. So there's a lot of testing that they did, and they finally deemed that I was unfit for service and retired me out. But they do cover my health. I pay $350 a year for health insurance to get covered in a TRICARE, and then I pay my co-pays.
There you go.
That worked out.
It sounds like it's working out for you. That's good. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and go back to your indoctrination into the military and boot camp. So what was boot camp or basic training like, and was it how you expected it to be?
I was terrified of boot camp because I went from being like a privileged kid, being brought up with no issues, to in the military. And it sucked, to be completely honest. So like you find your people that do events, they always look back on it like marathons. Oh, that was the best thing I've ever done. But I'm like, it actually sucked when you're doing it.
You still look back on it?
I look back on it, and then my brain's trying to tell me this was great. It was so much fun. I was like, I like sprayed with chemicals and woke up every day before. This is awful. But I lost a lot of weight. I joined the Army. I met a lot of great friends. Like even people you're basic with, you'll know them generally for the rest of your life. Even if you don't communicate with them closely, you'll still keep in touch with like Facebook now. But it was awful. A lot of early mornings and waking up and crappy food.
Sounds like it. So I wanted to ask about what your boot camp experience was like at Fort Jackson in South Carolina, and what kind of skills did you acquire in your training there?
So like basic training is less about the skills you're learning, and it's more to change your mindset. So when you get to basic, you're an individual. They shave your head, they give you the same clothes, they put you in a bed that everyone else has, and it's more to break down your individual personality and rebuild you into someone who follows orders. So it's a lot of, they yell at you, they dehumanize you, you're part of a unit, everything's team building, and if you disappoint the team, then you get punished for it. So they're trying to indoctrinate you into this form of blind following, but it's what you need.
Would you say you prefer to be trained that way in the unit and as a team, or would you prefer your individuality?
I'm more of an individual, so that stuff is kind of hard at times. because you can't talk back to people. You can't, oh, if you know a better way of doing something, you have to do it how they said. So they're kind of stifling out the creativity. But you learn to just adapt to it. That you have enough leeway in certain areas, and that's where you let your individuality kind of come out. But I'd wear socks that were not to regs. Like I'd wear like American flag socks or something in my boots and uniform as like my silent rebellion against conformity.
That's funny. So you're critical of the way that they train you, and you would like to be more of an individual?
I think it's necessary. It's just it's necessary and it's needed. It's just not what I'm into. Like if they did school like that, I probably wouldn't do so well. But the military, you need everyone to be the same and just listen to their superiors.
Yeah, so going into the school aspect of things that you mentioned.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell you anything about skills.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, so I'm going to ask, what was your job title like in the military?
I was an explosive ordnance disposal technician, so I was in the bomb squad. So basic teaches you basic soldering, like dig a hole, shoot a gun. This is how you do basic soldier stuff. And then you go to AIT, which is your advanced individual training. So our first phase is at Fort Lee, Virginia, and that was about 3 months. And that's just filtering out people who couldn't make it in EOD, which is, it's like a 1.5-year long school. So you send those people there, probably 80% of them fail out. So it's to get people out who don't listen and people who don't learn quickly. Then we get sent to Eglin, which is our second phase of EOD school, which is a Navy-run school. And that's where like it gets real and you actually learn your skills you need.
So what were your experiences like in your duties in Eglin?
So in Eglin, it was just going to the schoolhouse, but we went over everything from, it starts off with ground ordnance, so like grenades, landmines, and then it moves up to bombs and every sort of aircraft weapon you can imagine, and then you go into biological and chemical agents and weapons, nuclear, like it ends with nuclear, and then you're trained in everything that can kill you, and it's how to make it not kill you. So they aren't really teaching you the real world applications, they're actually just finding out if you can learn or not. So they give you really hard tasks. They teach you, like, this is how you defuse a nuclear bomb if ever needed. It probably won't ever happen, but you'll know how to do it, and you can learn from the instructions they give you next time.
Yeah,
So it's like, when I was going through, it was 92% of people were failing out. So like you go into with a group of 100 and 80 of you would finish.
Oh, so you're in the top percentile.
I think it's like the number 2 school behind nuclear submarines or like the linguistic school, so maybe number 3. But
do you apply any of those skills to your regular life now?
I do. Not as much as I'd like to because I'm not in that world anymore. But it's just like the general, how is it, being aware. You're constantly scanning and looking at stuff. It did help you decision making. It helps in leadership because it's a life or death situation, really. So you have to make decisions that matter quick.
That makes sense. So you were deployed to South Korea in 2015. What was your initial emotion when you found out that you were being deployed?
It was fun. I'm sorry, Korea was actually fun when I went, yeah.
Really? Because
it wasn't, say, Afghanistan or Iraq, which is where I'd hoped to go. It was more of a vacation for a year while still doing fun stuff. Like, we got to go to the DMZ and actually go through a landmine field.
Wow.
We got to, like, a tractor and hit a landmine, so we got to go, like, sweep up to that and get the guy out.
Wow.
And we did demining. We did, like, the rice fields are constantly kicking up landmines from the Korean War. We did a couple VIT missions. Like, I met Obama there in Korea.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I got to do a security detail for him. But Korea was great, but you never really thought about it as there's another potential war sitting right across the border, because we would do drills where it would be South Koreans fired off shots and North Koreans fired back, so we'd have to go sit in a, what would you call it, they call them a motor pool, but it's just like a place full of cars. So we'd get in our gear, we'd get our bags, and we'd get our ammo, and we would just wait for a war to start, and then it wouldn't, so we would go back to drinking and having fun. So it's this weird, like, we're in the first world city, best things you can ever imagine, and then there's a war potentially going to start. So you're, like, enjoying your life while also having to be skeptical. Yeah,
you mentioned how a war could start there at any time. Do you think that the American public loses sight of other military ventures outside of the publicized expeditions that we see in the American news?
I think it's coming more to light recently, because if you look at what's happening in Africa, we have groups. We have troops on the ground, and they're fighting a war that's no one even knows about. And that's been going on for probably 10 years or so that we've been there. You have these people all over the world fighting wars that we don't hear about because they're not publicized. So I think people just lose track of it and realize that when you're enlisting and you think you're not at war, there's still conflict going on. And I think our whole country is kind of based off conflict, though, and that just keeps going. Because we've been in a war since, what, 1940s? We've had some form of armed conflict.
Seems never ending.
It's not bad, it's just it's part of our military now. They're constantly advising or helping out other countries.
Yeah, the capitalist mind frame. So how do you think the South Koreans feel about having U.S. bases on their soil, and do you think it is good for the United States to have military bases in other countries such as South Korea?
I think it's good to I mean, if you're looking at it from a tactical standpoint, it's a foothold in another country that allows us to protect our influence. But when I was in Korea, I met people that either loved us or they hated us. The older generations who were there during the Korean War are very thankful, and they realized that, hey, we would probably not be here right now. We would have been taken over. So they would have been there. They would have been in a different government. And then you have the younger generation that hates us. So the first place I was ever told I couldn't eat at a restaurant was in South Korea. And they said because I'm white. Because they knew I was a soldier, so I wasn't allowed there. So it's a hit or miss. Most of them are tolerant or like you, and then there's the few that don't, because they see us as a occupying force that doesn't need to be there. But
wow, so there's a drastic difference in the generation.
A lot of racism there too from the Koreans. It's all Koreans there. So when you're an outsider, you're not Korean.
Right, it's not like the melting pot like America. Would you ever go back there?
I'd go there in a heartbeat. I love Korea.
You did?
Yeah. A lot of great food. People are nice. It's a really pretty city. And it's way cleaner than like New York, something. Similarities to Seoul. It's like the same place, just cleaner and nicer than New York. So I'd go back there in a heartbeat.
Wow, you're convincing me to travel.
You should go.
So, I want to ask you a little bit about your transition back into civilian life once you got out of the military. What was your first day like?
The first day, I was like kicking my heels like I won the lottery. I was like super excited to get out. We lived in Columbus, Georgia. That's where I was stationed for my last duty station. And I was going through all the medical stuff, so the military really puts you through the ringer when you're getting medically discharged. So I was at the doctor's probably 7 or 8 times a week, and it just gets old.
Wow.
Because they're constantly, like, they have to check to make sure the medicines aren't counteracting. I was getting shots constantly for my lung issues, and it turned into this, like, I was just getting paraded around and guinea pigged on, because there was different doctors that weren't talking with each other, putting me on different medicines. I think the most I was on was like 16 drugs a day. And I was like, I just feel awful, like, you guys are killing me. So I finally got out and I got a real doctor here in Massachusetts I was going to come meet. And it was like I won the lottery and I was ready to get out of there. We actually left the day I got my papers. We already had the car packed and we drove right back up to Massachusetts. So I was like done. Just by loving my time in the service, I was done and I was ready to get out.
Yeah, so you wouldn't go back to serve, but you go back just to visit.
I'd go back to Korea. I have friends there who own bars and restaurants, so.
Oh, there you go. That's something to look forward to doing. So what kind of support have you received since coming home? I know you just spoke about the medical support you were happy to have. Massachusetts.
I get to breathe and have a doctor who's a real doctor.
Yeah.
I'd say the support medically has helped, but
what about your family?
This family's awesome. Like when we first moved back, family let us live with them for a bit before we bought our house, and that allowed us to buy a house. So I know some people don't have that luxury because they come and they don't have a strong family support group. So I'm really lucky to have a family that actually helped as much as they did. But it wasn't just that. Like the Bedford VA has really tried to up their game. And I had someone who I can call whenever to ask questions. His name was Barat, and he would any questions I had, he would answer them. He was the one like reconnecting me with people. And the school, I started school like right after I got out. School's been great with services. Like Ted over at the Veterans Center really gets the stuff going and gets your paperwork through quick.
So you applied at Salem State. You've been here for how many years?
2017 I started, beginning of 2017.
Okay.
So it's like the end of my third semester coming up.
Okay.
So I guess a year and a half.
Wow. Well, congrats on
Thank you.
finishing your
One day.
next year. Yeah. So, are there any other personal challenges you'd like to share within your transition from military to civilian life?
I'd say the hardest part is finding a community, because you go from being around people constantly. You have your unit, you have your company, you have your platoon, any sort of increment of size you have in a group setting. Then you get out and you're just alone. So all your decisions are made and you have people helping you the whole way, and all of a sudden you're just dropped off and you're alone trying to figure out the world that you've been disconnected from for the past however many years. Because
How many years was it for you?
a little over 6.
Wow.
So you go from this, everything is regimented and mandated, to I could just not pay bills and I can just not go to the doctor, but you have to like become an adult almost a second time when you get out. And I realize that's what a lot of people in school struggle with, is this newfound freedom, because you actually do whatever you want and they decide to do things that aren't helpful. But it's great so far.
So your transition was...
The transition has helped because there's so many, what would we call them, support structures for you as a veteran now, compared to generations prior.
Yeah, would you say Salem State has...
Salem State helped, and I'd say just like the SVO, the VFW around here, they all want to help veterans, and like there's a lot of key players in the area too that are helping the transition. Like Rick Betancourt did my mortgage, and he really helped out me getting a home, which gave me stability. So it's just finding the right people to support you when you're leaving makes it easier.
Yeah, so do you find that same connection with any civilian students on campus, or more with other veterans on campus?
I'd say it's mostly other veterans and then faculty. Like I've noticed the veterans, obviously you have a similar background, so you know we all have the same jokes, we all have the stupid comments, and we all wear the stupid backpacks. not this one in particular, but they stick together more so, and the first year seminar kind of helps that. But I haven't really clicked with many other students other than students who want to join the military. So there's a lot of guys in class that'll notice you're a veteran, and they'll be like, oh, I was looking at joining the Army. And you have to tell them you just have to give them an honest opinion of your service. Like, you don't want to lie to them and get them to join and then they hate it. You also don't want to say it was awful, because then no one would join the military. But faculty's been great here, because there's a lot of veteran-friendly faculty members that want you to succeed, and like they help out.
That's good to hear. Yes, definitely. So I wanted to ask a little bit about your future goals and your expectations in life. And so, what do you do now for work?
I'm a full-time student. I'd say that's like my main job. But I work at Brooks Brothers 1 or 2 nights a week because they have an awesome discount. And I get to wear suits for 60% off. So.
Wow.
I know.
Fancy. So,
but other than that, the school is leading up to my future goals and career aspirations.
So what's your major right now?
My major is now geology. I switched it 2 weeks ago from criminal justice, and I'm going to get my master's in explosives engineering, because that kind of ties back into my last job. So it's geology, and then I have to move to Missouri to get my master's degree, which I'm not excited about, but...
Well, you've been hopping around your whole
life,
so...
Why not then?
Yeah, so you would want to do something in that career field. So how do you hope the skills that you learned in the military, like how are you going to apply them, and how could your MOS apply to your interest in civilian explosives?
The basic skills would be waiting, because in the military you're constantly having to adapt and overcome is what they call it. So you're having to be patient, having to just do your tasks on time. That's like any good adult does these, but the military really like hammers those into you. And then career-wise, being in the bomb squad and having prior explosive knowledge will really help me, because I'll have hands-on experience already. So I know how explosive works, I know their effects, and that's what they're going to be going over in class. So I'm hoping that will help me succeed.
Put that on your resume.
I will.
There you go. So I just want to wrap up and ask you one more question. What do you want people to take away most from this interview?
I think one of the things is veterans, like you were saying, get lumped together, and they realize that like they think everyone has the same political mindset, value system, and they realize that veterans, once they get out, I think a lot of people feel lost, and that contributes, unfortunately, to suicide epidemic. And just kind of, you took someone who had a life goal and everything was planned, and then you throw them out to the into the wild, essentially, and they don't know what to do with it. And I'm just hoping that veterans can hear this and see it, that they're not alone. If they need help, they can reach out to their old buddies. They can talk to their families. If they don't have a family, they can find a new one. And that's what I've been trying to tackle a lot at school, is finding people that are kind of straying from the path and like bring them back and be like, hey, if you need a friend, we're here for you.
Yeah,
we just don't take it into your own hands. And I guess that's what I've been really propositioning for lately, is I've been speaking at events about suicide. So I don't want people to just off themselves when they.
Yeah. Wow,
it's a really hard transition for a lot of people.
Yeah, you sound like a really supportive person, and going through it yourself, definitely.
I know that was kind of jumbled, what I want from this interview, but.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely, you're letting future veterans know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Alex, I wanted to thank you very much for your time today and letting us learn more about the life of a student veteran.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Alex and I were talking a little bit off camera, and we thought it would be good to continue recording because we had some more information, interesting information. If you want to tell me a little bit more about your experience in meeting President Obama.
So when I first learned that the Army is the actual bomb squad for the Secret Service, I didn't know that, and it was kind of like an interesting surprise to me. So the mission list goes around, and they go to every unit, and whoever can fill the positions does. So we got a call, and it was like, hey, we need someone to go on a VIP. It's a VIPSA, very important person security activity or something like that. And it was for President Obama at the time. And I thought it was a joke at first, because I'd never heard of that, and no one ever talks about it in the career field until you're actually in it. So I got to go on, my first VIP mission was with President Obama, and we were the security detail that checks for ordnance wherever he's going, or IEDs. So you're the one actually, you clear a room, and he's the last person allowed in it is you, and the Secret Service guards that room. And I was kind of thinking, that's like, I know some of the guys I got through school with and seen some of their antics and stories they have and how they are, and it was almost amazing that they're the ones that are checking the president's rooms for bombs. But they were all really dedicated to the job. I just don't think anyone knows going into EOD that's what happens.
Yeah.
That you have these like really important missions where you're driving around in the president's motorcade and scanning for IEDs and stuff you would never imagine, like almost like a movie. Like, oh, he actually has people that search his bed before he lays in it. And I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, you don't think about those details.
No.
Are there any other details?
I mean,
like
that? I've met President Obama and Jimmy Carter and like Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and other dignitaries, like a bunch of like 4-star generals from other countries. And
these all different VIP missions.
All different VIP missions, and they all get like a similar level of protection. So when you have us doing this, we're not thinking about who it's for really. We're just doing our job to the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do the same thing even if it was a low-level person versus the president, because it's my job to protect someone's life, not someone else's. So I'm there. I'm the last line of defense before they go in a room, and I would want to do that to the best of my ability.
And would you say all your comrades have the same mindset?
Yeah, all of them. Like, no one would not do their job on purpose because of a different viewpoint. Mm-hmm. So even if you hated the person you were protecting, you would still protect them with your life. Mm-hmm. Which is, I don't know if that's hard for some people to understand, but we're not getting into our career field for the safety of it. We're doing it because we have like a desire to protect others.
What sort of training did you have on that, like putting your life in front of someone else's?
So they call it find or function. So you're either going to find the hazardous device, or you're going to die and set it off. So that's a morbid look at it, but you'll have, like, say they put it in a cupboard, and when you pull the cupboard out, if there was something in there and you pulled it out, it would go off. So you're effectively putting your life on the line for someone considered important. And if you look at it that way, it's really depressing, but we would never focus on that aspect of it. We would never focus on the negativity. It would be like, imagine if I found an ID and saved the president, I'd probably be a hero. And I don't know if that's what the military's put into you or just our personalities, but everyone's looking to like prove themselves and do their best job possible. So that'd be awful, finding a bomb with the president there. But none of the people I know have ever found anything that was like super dangerous. It's still an important job though, just in case that one time they miss something.
A very important
Yeah.
job. Like you said, it's the kind of stuff you see in the movies.
Yeah, they're all really nice people though too. Like, you know how the presidents kind of have this mythic, like they're almost like a god among men because they're the leader of the free world. It's weird meeting them because they're just people. Like you shake their hand, you say hello, they ask how your day was, you ask how their day was, and then it's over. And it's not this like life-changing experience, but it's cool to meet someone who has that much power over the world. And then we're just behind the scenes, and no one will ever hear about this. But you will see the president daily. You just don't see all the people that go into protecting them, which is like thousands of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that unless you mentioned all of that.
They always have good food too in their hotel suites.
Good treatment. Yeah.
But other than that, they're just people that are trying to do their best job as well. So like Jimmy Carter's still, he does Sunday service. So when we would do his work, it was just, he has his own dedicated Secret Service team, and then we would shuffle through. But he's just trying to do a good job and help people however he can, even though he's like 90-something now. He's still out there serving the public, so.
Oh, jeez. Are there any other notable stories you'd like to share in general or about the VFIT missions or?
Probably nothing else that would get me in trouble if I told some of the good stories, but they're always out there.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you
Okay.
again for taking the time to
You're
come
welcome.
here
Thank
today and telling us more about your experience as a veteran and your transition back into civilian life.
Okay.